In the year 2487, humanity had long outgrown its small corner of the galaxy. The United Earth Federation, UEF, a coalition of the Earth and its colonies, had become a formidable presence. Earth had established thriving trade routes, built advanced research stations, and developed powerful military technologies that made humans a respected force. Despite this progress, the galaxy's other civilizations, alien races with centuries or millennia of history, often saw humanity as a young and untested species, not worthy of their full participation in the galactic community. This dismissive attitude came to a head during the Galician Conclave, an annual summit ere the fates of the galaxy's civilizations were debated. A meeting intended to address issues of expansion and cooperation was to be held on the neutral planet of Altan, a sprawling city-world home to ambassadors, diplomats, and leaders from countless systems. Earth had hoped for a stronger voice in the intergalactic policies, pushing for more inclusion, rights, and trade access for humanity's burgeoning colonies. But the Xener, an ancient and technologically superior race, issued a statement that crushed all hopes. Humanity is a species too young, too volatile, to have any meaningful place in the future of the galaxy, declared Lore, the Xener envoy, his voice laced with disdain. Your presence here is a waste of time. Your kind is still primitive in its development, lacking the wisdom and stability required to be part of galactic civilization. The shockwaves from Lore's words reverberated throughout the summit hall. Humanity had long struggled for recognition and acceptance on the galactic stage, and the Xener's rejection was more than a diplomatic snub, it was an insult. Earth's delegation tried to diplomatically respond, pushing for mutual respect and understanding, but the Xener were resolute. When Earth representatives demanded a fair hearing and an opportunity to present their case, the Xener quickly shut them down. Just as tensions began to escalate, a civilian trade convoy near the Terran frontier, composed of both human and allied alien vessels, was suddenly ambushed and destroyed. The attack was swift, brutal, and unprovoked, with hundreds of innocent lives lost in the blink of an eye. The perpetrators were confirmed to be a rogue faction of the Xener Empire, likely acting without the approval of their High Council. The galaxy was plunged into chaos. The Xener's ruthless attack shattered any illusion of peaceful relations. For the first time, humans saw their colonies under threat, their people subjected to the whims of a race that saw them as inferior. Fear swept through Earth, and the once distant possibility of war now seemed like an imminent reality. President Elena Radcliffe, a strong and charismatic leader, made an emergency address to the United Earth Federation. Her voice was steady, unwavering in its conviction, but there was an underlying tension that could not be ignored. The attack on our people cannot go unanswered. The time for diplomacy has passed, Radcliffe declared, her gaze sharp as she addressed a restless populace. Humanity will not kneel before the Xener. We will not stand idly by as they wipe out our colonies and destroy our way of life. The UEF immediately began mobilizing its military forces, pushing for a declaration of war. The first wave of retaliation was swift and calculated. Human ships and fleets took to the stars, cutting a path toward the Xener-held systems. But the Xener, accustomed to dominance, were caught off guard by the ferocity and tenacity of the human response. Across the galaxy, the question was on everyone's mind: could humanity, a relatively young species, stand up to one of the galaxy's oldest and most powerful empires? The answer came quickly, as humanity's military forces did not retreat but fought back with a vigor that was unmatched. It was not just Earth's fleets that were responding, it was every colony, every individual, and every human who had ever believed in the strength of their people. What began as a simple attack on a trade convoy had ignited a war that would test humanity's resolve in ways they had never imagined. For the first time in its history, humanity would face its greatest challenge, and in the process, prove that it was far more than a primitive species. As Earth's forces geared up for the war ahead, they were united by a single truth: this was not just about survival. It was about proving that humanity belonged among the stars, and that no one, no matter how mighty, could take that from them. The Galactic War had begun. The war had begun, and humanity's resolve was tested in ways few could have predicted. Earth's forces, while powerful and well-equipped, were vastly outnumbered by the ancient Xener Empire, whose military prowess and technology were far beyond anything humanity had developed. At first, the humans' retaliatory strikes against the Xener were small and tactical, aimed at reclaiming lost colonies and defending their borders. The Xener were ruthless, their fleets vast and equipped with advanced weaponry that outclassed anything the UEF had. Despite the initial setbacks, humanity's tenacity began to shine through. In the early days of the conflict, a series of surprise victories by smaller human ships against the Xener established a reputation for human ingenuity. These victories, though relatively minor, created a ripple effect. The Xener were not accustomed to dealing with such unpredictable, unorthodox tactics. It was clear that humanity was not a race to be underestimated. However, Earth's forces were quickly stretched thin. Colonies on the outer rim, previously safe from major conflicts, were now under attack, with cities burning under the relentless assault of Xener warships. The Federation scrambled to defend its territories, but the scale of the threat was overwhelming. As Earth's homeworld faced the possibility of a full-scale invasion, President Radcliffe made a crucial decision that would shape the fate of humanity. Realizing the gravity of the situation, she called for a council meeting with the leaders of Earth's allied colonies, Mars, Titan, and Ganymede among them. The alliance that had been built over centuries of peaceful exploration and trade was now a military one, and every colony had to contribute its strength if humanity was to have a chance of winning this war. The council convened in a secret location deep within Earth's fortified military headquarters, where military strategists, engineers, and leaders from each colony gathered. The human race, once divided and separated by the vastness of space, was now united by the will to survive. Every colony, from the bustling megacities of Earth to the frozen ice worlds of Titan, put aside their differences and pledged their full support. In a bold move, General Marcus Helios, a veteran of the UEF armed forces, presented a strategy that would change the course of the war. His plan called for the formation of a special task force, composed of elite human soldiers, pilots, and engineers, that would strike at the heart of the Xener Empire. This team would undertake covert missions designed not only to weaken the Xener's strategic infrastructure but also to gather intelligence on their weaknesses. The task force, dubbed the Phoenix Strike Team, was composed of some of the finest minds humanity had to offer. Among them were Captain Isabella Izzy Navarro, a brilliant tactician and pilot who had been instrumental in the early victories, Dr. Kai Huang, a scientist whose breakthroughs in quantum mechanics could potentially change the tide of the war, and Lieutenant Amir Patel, a cyber warfare expert capable of hacking into the most secure Xener systems. Together, this diverse group represented humanity's greatest assets: innovation, intelligence, and unparalleled courage. As the Phoenix Strike Team prepared for their first mission, tensions mounted across the galaxy. The human fleets were fighting tooth and nail to hold back the Xener onslaught, but the enemy's forces seemed endless. Still, morale among the human population was higher than ever. In every city, from the neon-lit streets of New York City to the barren deserts of Mars, people rallied to the cause. Civilian ships were repurposed as war vessels, and factories that once produced consumer goods now churned out weapons of war. The human resistance was no longer a fragmented group of separate colonies, it was a united force, focused on one common goal: the survival of humanity and the freedom of the galaxy. Throughout the conflict, humanity's adaptability became its greatest strength. Whereas the Xener fought with precision and overwhelming power, humans learned to fight in unpredictable ways, using the terrain, their environment, and their creativity to their advantage. Earth's soldiers were relentless, and their bond with one another was stronger than any military technology. As the Phoenix Strike Team embarked on their mission, they were not just fighting for their homeworld, they were fighting for the future of all humanity. Across the stars, the cry for freedom rang out. The resistance was growing, and humanity had become a force to be reckoned with. The Phoenix Strike Team's first mission would send a clear message to the galaxy: humanity was no longer a species to be dismissed. They were a species capable of standing up to the galaxy's most powerful empires, and they would fight until their last breath. The Phoenix Strike Team's first mission, a daring infiltration of a Xener supply depot deep within enemy territory, marked a pivotal moment in the war. The depot, a heavily fortified complex located on a barren moon near the Xener capital, was the key to the Empire's ongoing military campaigns. Intelligence suggested that if it were destroyed, the Xener would be unable to continue their war effort for months, giving humanity a critical window to strike back. Captain Isabella Navarro led the strike team, accompanied by her trusted crew, Dr. Kai Huang, whose quantum calculations would guide their mission's success, Lieutenant Amir Patel, whose expertise in hacking alien systems would allow them to bypass security measures, and Sergeant Laura Hayes, an expert in ground combat, whose knowledge of close-quarters battle would ensure the team's survival on the surface. The mission itself was a high-stakes gamble. The Xener had installed advanced detection systems that could easily pick up human ships, but the Phoenix team had a unique advantage: human adaptability. Using newly developed cloaking technology, they managed to slip past the Xener's radar, avoiding detection long enough to land undetected on the moon's surface. Their objective was clear: infiltrate the heavily fortified base, plant a series of explosives that would cripple the depot's power supply, and then escape before the Xener could retaliate. But they quickly discovered that the mission would not be as simple as expected. The Xener had anticipated a potential attack and had increased their defenses, making the operation more dangerous than anyone had anticipated. As they navigated through the moon's harsh terrain, Dr. Huang used his scientific genius to alter the cloaking device, making it more effective against Xener sensors. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Patel used his hacking skills to disable the outer security grids, allowing the team to enter the depot undetected. Inside, they found more than just supplies. They uncovered a shocking secret: a massive Xener fleet was being built in secret, one that could wipe out entire human colonies in a matter of hours. This revelation changed everything. The war was no longer just about defense, it was about preventing humanity's annihilation. The Phoenix strike team immediately altered their mission: they had to sabotage the fleet before it could launch. The stakes were higher than ever. But as the team ventured deeper into the heart of the base, they triggered a security breach. Alarms blared, and a battalion of elite Xener soldiers descended upon them. The strike team fought valiantly, using every trick and tactic they had learned. Sergeant Hayes led the charge, taking out Xener forces with precision, while Captain Navarro coordinated the team's movements, ensuring they remained one step ahead of the enemy. However, the fight was taking its toll. They were outnumbered, and the clock was ticking. Just as the Xener soldiers began to overwhelm them, Lieutenant Patel managed to breach the core of the fleet's main control center. With a few swift keystrokes, he initiated the self-destruct sequence, sending the entire fleet into a state of meltdown. But the Xener were not done yet. In a desperate final act of retaliation, they activated a powerful countermeasure: an automated warship that was set to launch a devastating attack on Earth's colonies. With no time to lose, Captain Navarro made a quick decision. She ordered the team to split up: one group would escape while the other would stay behind to delay the warship's launch. It was a sacrifice that would not be taken lightly, but it was necessary to ensure humanity's survival. Navarro and Patel led the escape, while Hayes and Dr. Huang stayed behind, working tirelessly to disrupt the warship's systems. As the Phoenix strike team made their way back to their ship, the sounds of explosions and enemy fire echoed in their ears. It was chaos, every step a fight for their lives. In the final moments before their escape, Sergeant Hayes managed to plant the last charge that destroyed the warship's engine core. The ship went down in a massive explosion, taking the rest of the Xener fleet with it. The Phoenix strike team had completed their mission, but at a heavy cost. Hayes and Dr. Huang were lost in the explosion, their fates sealed by their bravery. As the survivors of the mission, Captain Navarro, Lieutenant Patel, and Dr. Huang returned to Earth, they were hailed as heroes. The destruction of the fleet was a turning point in the war. The Xener, who had once thought themselves invincible, were reeling from a loss they had not anticipated. Humanity's first major victory sent ripples across the galaxy, and the once dismissed species was now recognized as a force to be reckoned with. But as the survivors mourned their fallen comrades, they knew the war was far from over. The Xener were regrouping, and humanity had made an enemy more dangerous than any they had faced before. But in that moment, one thing was clear: humanity's will to survive and fight for its future had only just begun. The turning point had come, and the galaxy would never be the same again. In the aftermath of the Phoenix Strike team's devastating success, humanity's hopes soared. The destruction of the Zener fleet was a blow that no one in the galaxy had anticipated. The survivors, Captain Isabella Navarro, Lieutenant Amir Patel, and Dr. Kai Huang, returned to Earth as heroes, their names forever etched in the annals of human history. Earth's military forces were emboldened by a newfound sense of possibility. If they could defeat the Zener once, surely they could do it again. But the galaxy was not as it seemed. While humanity had struck a decisive blow, the Zener Empire was not so easily defeated. Beneath the surface of victory lay the cold truth: the Zener had many secrets, and the battle was far from over. As Earth's forces prepared for their next move, a new and unexpected enemy began to emerge from the shadows. Unknown to humanity, the Zener had long been in league with another race, one far older and far more dangerous than they could have ever anticipated. The Kreth, an ancient and highly advanced alien species, had silently watched from the edges of the galaxy, manipulating events in the background for their own mysterious purposes. The Kreth were a cold, calculating race, devoid of compassion or empathy. They had long ago abandoned the concept of individual freedom and instead sought absolute control over the galaxy. When the Zener Empire was thrown into disarray, the Kreth seized the opportunity to intervene, taking advantage of the turmoil and using it to further their own agenda. The galaxy's greatest threat was no longer just the Zener, it was the Kreth, who had remained hidden, their true power only now beginning to surface. The Kreth had been manipulating the Zener from the start. It was they who had secretly funded and supplied the Zener's war efforts, using them as pawns in a much larger game. The Kreth's ultimate goal was not simply to defeat humanity, it was to control the entire galaxy, subjugating every race to their will. The Zener were merely a means to an end, and now, with the Zener faltering, the Kreth were stepping forward, ready to claim their place as the galaxy's undisputed rulers. As Earth's military forces prepared for the next stage of the war, they found themselves facing an enemy far more sophisticated and ruthless than they had ever imagined. The Kreth did not fight like the Zener. They were masters of subterfuge, experts at infiltrating and manipulating their foes before striking with lethal precision. They had no need for fleets or armies, their weapons were covert, their methods devious. It wasn't long before humanity began to realize that the Kreth were already among them. A series of mysterious sabotage attacks on key UEF military installations sent shockwaves through Earth's defenses. Ships were sabotaged in drydock, military bases were infiltrated, and entire fleets were thrown into disarray by a shadowy force they couldn't identify. The human forces, once confident in their newfound strength, now found themselves facing an invisible enemy, one they could neither track nor predict. President Elena Radcliffe, once hopeful and confident after the Phoenix Strike team's victory, now found herself in a difficult position. The Zener had been a threat, but the Kreth were a true nightmare. If humanity was to survive this new war, it would have to fight on an entirely different front. The fight would no longer be against an enemy fleet, it would be against an insidious force that worked in the dark, sowing chaos and confusion wherever it went. Realizing that they had no choice but to adapt, Earth's military command formed an elite unit known as the Sentinels. These were the best of the best, soldiers, spies, and analysts who would be tasked with hunting down the Kreth threat wherever it appeared. Led by Captain Navarro, now a seasoned leader with a deep understanding of the galaxy's dangers, the Sentinels would operate in the shadows, using every tool at their disposal to root out the Kreth and their agents. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Patel, ever the hacker, began uncovering disturbing patterns in the data he had collected from the Kreth attacks. The more he dug, the more he realized that the Kreth were not only manipulating human systems, they were infiltrating them. They had already gained access to the highest levels of Earth's government, with agents embedded in military command and even among the UEF's leadership. It became clear that Earth was facing a war on two fronts, a physical war against the remnants of the Zener Empire, and a covert war against the unseen hand of the Kreth. Humanity's survival depended not only on their strength in battle but also on their ability to outwit their unseen enemy. As the Sentinels prepared to strike at the heart of the Kreth's operations, humanity faced its greatest challenge yet, an enemy that was not bound by the traditional rules of war. This was a war of deception, of shadowy manipulation, and it would take every ounce of human ingenuity, courage, and unity to win. The Zener had underestimated humanity's resilience. The Kreth, however, had underestimated humanity's ingenuity. And as Earth's forces geared up for this new and unseen battle, one thing was certain: humanity would not go down without a fight. They had proven themselves once, and they would do it again. With the Kreth now fully revealed as the true threat behind the Zener Empire, humanity faced a new and daunting challenge. While the Zener had relied on brute strength and overwhelming firepower, the Kreth employed tactics of subterfuge, espionage, and psychological warfare. These were masters of manipulation, an ancient race whose very presence seemed to warp the fabric of reality itself. They were everywhere, and yet nowhere. As Captain Navarro and the Sentinels readied themselves for the war that was no longer just about space battles, they knew they had to outthink their new enemy, not just outfight them. In the aftermath of their latest strike against a Kreth-controlled facility, which had revealed shocking new information, the Sentinels were left with a critical piece of data, a map, encrypted and nearly impossible to decode. Yet within it lay the location of the Kreth's secret base, the center of their influence and the nexus of their control over the galaxy. But to reach it, the Sentinels would have to break into one of the most heavily guarded locations in existence, a hidden space station located in an uncharted part of the galaxy, deep within hostile territory. This was no ordinary military base, it was the heart of the storm itself, the place where the Kreth's most powerful and sinister plans were formulated. The map led them to an ancient star system, long abandoned and thought to be uninhabited. It was in this forgotten region of space that the Kreth had constructed their base, a place of immense power and mystery, where time itself seemed to bend in unnatural ways. Humanity's best minds were needed now, not just soldiers. Dr. Kai Huang was called upon once again to assist, using his scientific expertise to analyze the data and find a way to infiltrate the base. He discovered that the station was surrounded by a massive energy field, one that could distort time and space, rendering any standard attack useless. The field would bend and warp any weaponry aimed at it, making traditional assaults impossible. With no conventional way to approach, the Sentinels realized their only hope lay in using the very tools the Kreth had created for their own purposes. The Sentinels began gathering a force of elite soldiers, hackers, and engineers, each hand-picked for their skill set. Among them were veterans of previous conflicts, those who had fought and survived the horrors of war. But there was also a new kind of warrior, one who had learned from the mistakes of the past. Lieutenant Amir Patel, whose hacking expertise had already saved humanity once, began researching the energy fields surrounding the Kreth base. He realized that while the field distorted energy, it also created pockets of vulnerability, small openings that could be exploited if they were located and timed correctly. These small weaknesses were humanity's only chance. As the Sentinels made their way toward the heart of the storm, tensions rose. The galaxy seemed to hold its breath as they entered the unknown. They knew they were facing an enemy unlike anything they had ever encountered, but they had no choice but to press forward. There was no turning back. As they approached the Kreth base, the eerie silence of the uncharted space around them seemed almost unnatural. The stars themselves appeared dimmer here, as if the very fabric of the galaxy was being drained of its life force. The Sentinels had faced danger before, but this was something different. There was a palpable sense of dread, an unknown force pressing down on them from all sides. The moment they entered the energy field, everything changed. The usual calm of space was replaced by a disorienting whirl of colors and distorted light. Time felt sluggish, and every second stretched into eternity. But Lieutenant Patel, using his expertise, located the first of the vulnerabilities. It was a narrow passage through the energy field, barely wide enough to accommodate their ship. With skill and precision, he guided the vessel through, narrowly avoiding the field's chaotic distortion. Inside the station, they encountered something no one could have predicted: the Kreth did not rely solely on their own species. They had enslaved entire civilizations, extracting their life force and knowledge to fuel their operations. The Sentinels discovered that the station was not just a military base, it was a prison. Entire alien species, captured and forced into servitude, were shackled and drained of their essence to power the Kretha's dark technologies. The Sentinels had seen atrocities before, but nothing like this. The realization hit hard: the Kreth weren't just conquerors, they were parasitic, feeding on entire species for their own gain. The Sentinels were sickened, but they knew they couldn't hesitate. They had to act quickly to disable the station and stop the Kreth once and for all. Their mission became more than just about the survival of humanity. It was about ending the Kretha's reign of terror, saving the enslaved species, and freeing the galaxy from their grasp. As they fought their way through the station's defenses, dodging traps, overcoming alien soldiers, and navigating the station's treacherous labyrinth, Captain Navarro's resolve remained unshaken. Every step they took brought them closer to their goal, and every life they encountered, every enslaved alien they freed, served to strengthen their resolve. The Sentinels weren't just fighting for humanity now, they were fighting for the galaxy as a whole. At the core of the station, the Sentinels finally faced the Kretha's central command. The Kreth themselves, as cold and calculating as ever, were prepared for the human assault. But the Sentinels had something the Kreth couldn't anticipate: a fire that burned in their hearts, a determination that the Kreth had never seen in any species. The final confrontation was inevitable. As the Kreth began to launch their counterattack, it became clear that this was no longer just a battle for survival. It was a battle for the future of the galaxy itself. Humanity's fate rested on the shoulders of the Sentinels, and they would not back down. The storm had come, and humanity was ready to face it head-on. The confrontation within the heart of the Kretha's hidden space station escalated into a battle that no one could have predicted. Captain Isabella Navarro and the Sentinels had breached the core of the Kretha's operations, but they now faced the full wrath of an ancient and cunning enemy. The Kreth were not only ruthless conquerors, they were also masters of war, able to manipulate space, time, and energy to their advantage. Their cold, calculating minds had seen every move the Sentinels made, and they had already prepared their counterattack. Captain Navarro's voice rang out in the chaos of battle, issuing orders to her team, keeping them focused as explosions echoed throughout the station's dark halls. She and Lieutenant Amir Patel led the charge, using every bit of humanity's ingenuity to outsmart and overpower their foes. The team fought bravely, but it was clear that the Kreth were no ordinary adversaries. The station's core was a labyrinth of shifting corridors and complex systems that seemed to defy physics itself. Time itself bent and twisted in strange ways, with seconds stretching into hours, and hours collapsing into mere moments. The Sentinels had to rely on their wits and determination, as their usual methods of combat and technology became ineffective in the station's destabilized environment. Dr. Kai Huang, who had worked tirelessly to analyze the Kretha's technology, was the key to unlocking the mystery of the station's bizarre physics. He began to unravel the Kretha's manipulation of time and energy, discovering that at the heart of the station lay an unstable quantum singularity, a device capable of distorting the very fabric of reality. The Kreth had been using this singularity to amplify their control over space and time, allowing them to stay one step ahead of their enemies. To destroy the Kreth and stop their hold over the galaxy, the singularity had to be disabled. But that would require a sacrifice. The device was deeply integrated into the station's core, and any attempt to disrupt it would likely result in the station's collapse, consuming everyone within it. As Navarro weighed their options, the stakes became clear. They could destroy the Kreth, end their manipulation of the galaxy, but they would likely perish in the process. The Sentinels had known this mission was high risk, but now the odds seemed insurmountable. It wasn't just about defeating the enemy, it was about preventing the Kreth from escaping and continuing their reign of terror over the galaxy. Time was running out. The Kreth were beginning to mobilize their final weapon, a fleet of advanced warships that would be deployed to ensure their victory. If humanity failed to disable the singularity, the Kreth would escape into the galaxy, and no force in the universe could stop them. Captain Navarro looked to her team, her resolve hardening. "We don't have much time. The singularity is the key. If we destroy it, we cripple their entire operation. It's our only shot at stopping them." Lieutenant Patel, ever the strategist, nodded. "We'll need to use the station's own systems against them. I'll hack into the central core and trigger a countdown to destabilize the singularity. But I can't do it alone. I'll need cover. Sergeant Laura Hayes, who had fought alongside them through every challenge, stepped forward. We'll cover you, Lieutenant. We're in this together. Let's finish what we started. With no other choice, the team pressed forward, moving quickly toward the singularity's location. As they navigated the final stretch of the station, they encountered a fierce resistance. The Kreth sent wave after wave of their elite soldiers, their cold, emotionless faces showing no signs of mercy. But the Sentinels pushed forward, using every ounce of strength and ingenuity they had. Finally, they reached the core. The singularity hummed ominously, its energy threatening to tear the station apart. Patel and Huang quickly began working to interface with the device, while Navarro and Hayes held off the advancing Kreth soldiers. The fight was brutal. The Kreth forces, while physically superior, were no match for the sheer determination and resourcefulness of the humans. The Sentinels fought with everything they had, knowing that the fate of the galaxy rested on this one moment. Each second was precious as Patel and Huang scrambled to decipher the alien technology that could destroy the singularity and destabilize the Kreth's hold on the galaxy. The clock was ticking. Outside, the Kreth warships were preparing to launch, and the station's defenses were beginning to activate, sending waves of energy toward the humans. The situation was dire. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Patel and Huang succeeded. With a final keystroke, they initiated the sequence that would collapse the singularity. The station began to tremble, and the warped space around them started to unravel. The energy field that had shielded the Kreth's operations began to break down, and the power of the singularity began to destabilize, threatening to consume the entire station. We're out of time! Navarro shouted. Everyone, get to the extraction point. Now! The team raced toward their ship, dodging the collapsing station as it crumbled around them. Explosions erupted, and the very structure of reality seemed to shatter with each passing second. They made it to the extraction point just in time, as the station's core imploded, sending shockwaves through the surrounding space. The Kreth's empire crumbled in an instant. Their hold over the galaxy was broken, and the warships that had been prepared to launch into the galaxy were destroyed in the ensuing chaos. The Sentinels had succeeded, but at a heavy cost. The Singularity's collapse had nearly consumed them, and their ship had taken severe damage. The fate of the galaxy had been altered forever, but their survival was uncertain. As they limped back toward Earth, the survivors of the mission knew that this was only the beginning. The galaxy was free from the Kreth's manipulation, but their battle was far from over. Humanity had proven itself to be a force unlike any other, resilient, inventive, and unstoppable. And now, with the Kreth's influence shattered, humanity had a chance to rebuild and rise stronger than ever before. But the war was not finished. There would be more battles to fight, more enemies to face. The galaxy had changed forever, and humanity would be ready. The last gambit had been played, and the future belonged to those brave enough to claim it. In the aftermath of their triumph, the galaxy was a place of both peace and uncertainty. The Kreth had been defeated, their manipulative grip on countless species shattered, but the galaxy was far from healed. Captain Isabella Navarro and the Sentinels had survived the collapse of the Kreth's hidden station, and their return to Earth was a somber one. The mission that had begun as a desperate gamble had culminated in a victory, but that victory came at an incredible cost. The damage to their ship had been extensive, and the survivors limped back to Earth with their bodies battered and their spirits bruised. They had seen the full scope of the Kreth's cruelty and power, but they had also proven something fundamental about humanity. Even in the face of insurmountable odds, they would never back down. They would fight. They would win. Upon their arrival, humanity celebrated their victory, but there was no time for a peaceful reprieve. The galaxy had changed, and the old powers, the empires and rulers who had dominated the stars for millennia, were left scrambling. The Kreth's reign had been broken, but it was clear that their manipulation of galactic affairs had left behind a power vacuum, a void waiting to be filled by new contenders, and perhaps old enemies. The news of the Sentinel's success spread like wildfire. Every corner of the galaxy had felt the shockwaves of the Kretha's downfall, and now there were whispers of other empires rising in their place. But despite the looming threats, Captain Navarro knew one thing: humanity would no longer be the underdog. The galaxy would never look at Earth the same way again. The Sentinels' victory was more than just military, it was a symbol. It was proof that humanity, despite its relative youth in the grand scheme of the cosmos, could stand tall against the ancient powers that had tried to dominate them. Earth was no longer just a small, insignificant world on the edge of the galaxy. Humanity had proven its worth on the galactic stage. But for Navarro, Patel, Hayes, Huang, and the rest of the team, the fight wasn't over. They had taken down the Kreth, but they had seen the galaxy's true face: the alliances, the lies, the power struggles, and the terrifying potential of the universe's more dangerous civilizations. They knew they had to be ready for what was to come. As the galaxy began to recover from the Kretha's destructive reign, the Sentinels found themselves at the heart of an effort to stabilize the galaxy. Earth's leaders called upon them to guide the future of their people, to protect them from whatever new threats loomed on the horizon. Despite the grave circumstances, humanity's resolve was stronger than ever. The knowledge they had gained during the war, their ingenuity, their adaptability, and their unyielding will to survive, would become the bedrock of Earth's future as a galactic power. However, the Kretha's manipulation of time and space had not been completely eradicated. Though the singularity had been destroyed, the remnants of their technology still lingered, like ghosts in the corners of the galaxy. Dr. Kai Huang, who had been instrumental in understanding the Kretha's quantum technology, began working on new methods to ensure that no one, human or alien, could ever misuse such power again. His team developed new safeguards to prevent the mistakes of the past from ever repeating. In a final, symbolic gesture, Captain Navarro and the Sentinels were honored with the highest medals of valor, their names forever etched in the annals of human history. They had proven that even in the darkest moments, humanity's brightest trait, its unwavering hope and perseverance, could light the way. They were the new heroes of the galaxy, and their legacy would inspire generations to come. But their victory did not go unchallenged. As humanity expanded its influence throughout the galaxy, new factions emerged, wary of Earth's sudden rise to power. The old empires that had been weakened by the Kretha's manipulation would now seek to reclaim their positions, and new, unknown threats were already lurking on the fringes of space. The balance of power had shifted, and the galaxy was in flux. Humanity's place among the stars was not guaranteed, it would require constant vigilance, ingenuity, and a willingness to adapt. Yet for the first time in history, Earth had a seat at the table. The galaxy had learned the hard way that underestimating humanity was a dangerous mistake, and that strength alone would never define the fate of the universe. The battle for the future of the galaxy had only just begun. The Sentinels knew they would continue to be at the forefront, fighting for a future where humanity and its allies could thrive, free from the shadows of those who would oppress them. In the end, the war that had changed everything for mankind was only the beginning of something greater. As the stars burned brightly above, humanity stood ready to shape its destiny, to prove that no matter how dark the universe might grow, they would always find a way to fight back. And they would fight, because that was what humanity had always done. The dawn of a new era had arrived. And the galaxy would never be the same.